it's just Martine, and today we're going to be reading books based off of their cover, and one that gets me a lot, illustrated covers. Illustrated covers get me every time. I swear there are so many books that I end up not enjoying, but I pick them up because they have illustrated covers. I'm like, ooh, that's so cute. And then it's like not the type of book that I'd like, especially because romance, which is a really hit or miss genre for me, is leaning heavily into those illustrated covers. So for this, I tried to find 5 books that had illustrated covers, not all of which were romance. And I ended up with the following 5 books. I'm gonna show you the covers here so you can see that they are indeed illustrated. We have Anything But Extraordinary, it's one of those. Adulting, Only the Pretty Lies, Imperfect Chemistry, and April Fools. There we have it. Let's jump right into it. Alrighty, I finished my first book for this challenge. I read Anything But Extraordinary, and I'm giving it 3 stars. For a hot second there, I was considering giving it a 4 stars, and then the ending happened, and it was upsetting to me. This book is about this girl and her younger sister. Well, she's a young woman and her younger sister, and they move into this small town because they've escaped from their parents who are like con people, and so they've been involved in like cons their whole lives, and they feel terrible about all the things they've done, and their parents are terrible people, and so they're trying to escape them. They found this listing for this place in this small like beachside town called Castle Cove, where this lady named Ruby, she's opening a new like psychic shop. The same day that Ruby is getting into town, she's also leaving for like a several months trip to meet the Dalai Lama. So she needs somebody to occupy the space and get the store ready for opening. And it's supposed to be just one person with no kids and no pets. And so basically already to get into the place where they can afford to live right now, they're doing this con where they pretend like her younger sister isn't with her, it's just her moving in and stuff. So she moves in. Everything starts to unravel when this one girl who's like visiting the town comes in asking for a reading. They don't have any money and they haven't been eating like enough food and stuff, and the girl offers $200 for a reading. So the main character accepts, and she gives her this like fake reading. Something from it like kind of comes true. Like there's a crime that happens, and the police or the sheriffs in the area, they come and they knock on her door and they want help solving the case, and they want to know how she knew the things that she knew. So it's like part mystery, part small town vibe. I really loved the small town in it. Castle Cove was just great, and the people in it were great. And then her like love interest, it's like an enemies to lovers type situation with the deputy of the town. So like con woman and deputy. It's great, but obviously he doesn't know she's a con woman, so she's pretending to be Ruby this whole time, and she's getting to know all these people, and they're helping her with her life and stuff, and she's lying to them the whole time. I really enjoyed like everything about it. It was a really fast, easy read. The bingo scene was fun. It was really like heartwarming, her connecting with like her grumpy next door neighbor and stuff. Yeah, all of that was great. And even the ending was going to be good, but I was like tense the whole time about like, oh my God, they're going to figure out she's not Ruby, and then something bad is going to happen. I don't know how the people in this town are going to forgive her, whatever, but I want a happy ending. But the mystery got solved. Her identity was not yet exposed, and that's where the book ended. So it was like a major cliffhanger. We don't actually know how she's going to recover from that. There are 2 other books published, but I got this one for free, and I know it's just going to hurt me when it happens. Like all these people that she's learned to like love and be really good friends with, when they find this out, it's just going to hurt to read about. So like, I don't need that in my life. But I was like mentally prepared for that resolution, and then it never happened, which I didn't enjoy. So it would have been a 4-star book, except the ending really bumped it down, because like I was reading and I was like, okay, and then the next sentence was to be continued, and I was like, I don't think so. First book down. Last night I started Imperfect Chemistry, and I read 10% of it. And then today I read the other 90% of it. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. It was not a perfect read for me for like a couple of reasons. The main one revolves around the fact that this is about a savant main character, which I typically love. But the author, I didn't like how she originally wrote her. I get that the author wanted to show the progression from like really socially stilted and logical to like more emotional at the end. At the same time, felt like it was overboard in the beginning of like showing that in the narration, if you will. Like it was just really awkward. And then I also had an issue with the main friend that the main character made. Not like in general, Freya was a lovely character and I liked her, but there was always this sense that she wanted to change Lucy, the main character, and that she felt like Lucy wasn't okay the way that she was. On the other hand, that made me really appreciate the male MC, Jensen, a lot more, because it was very clear that from the start, even though he got a weird first impression of Lucy, that he liked her for the person that she always was, that he didn't want or need her to change in any way. And I did love that, because I think that's a good message. I liked Jensen as a character. So in a lot of romance books, they have this issue where the like main problem at the end is revolving around miscommunication. I liked that that didn't happen this time. Like when the issue happened, instead of like rolling my eyes and being like, okay, here we go, I was like, oh no. And it was really interesting how the author tried to resolve it. Maybe a little cheesy, but like fine. It made it so that like the actual resolution was very much in character with like how the characters had been before. So like it was the fault of the people who were like, yeah, it makes sense that it was their fault, and not the people who were like, ooh, I thought better of them, and then they did something weird and slightly terrible. So that was nice. I recommend this as like a fun read. I think you do have to get through the beginning, which is really kind of stilted, but it's a really fast read. The chapters are not too long at all. In fact, I feel like the chapters get shorter as you continue in the book. Like they start with like 7-minute chapters or something, and then they're like 2-minute chapters by the end. But I really flew through this one in like basically 2 sittings, which I think has to say something about it. I thought it was fun. There were a couple of screenshots I took that were really funny. I thought some of the conversations between Jensen and Lucy were just hilarious, probably because he let her say things the way that she always said them and then like responded to them, and he loved how like truthful and blunt she was, which I really appreciated. And I thought the general concept was like interesting. I don't know. It's basically about this girl who's been going to college since she was 13. She's already gotten a doctorate in like immunology, and now she's gotten a grant to do a study about emotional pathogens, so how emotions spread, but she can't seem to find a viable hypothesis, because in order to try and find a viable hypothesis, she's been working at this like counseling clinic, but she's really terrible at it. Like really terrible. And so her advisor like suspends her work for a little bit to be like, you need to chill and like think about this some more before you go forward. And so she starts to try and understand from other people around her what emotions are really like, especially when it comes to like love and lust and all those things. And it was just like a fun time. So I'm glad I read it. I just finished Adulting and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I really had a fun time with this book. At one point I thought it would be 5 stars, but then like, I don't know why. At some points it just seemed really preachy. It had a good message about like taking ownership of your own life and being an adult and all that stuff. It was really good and all that, but it was very preachy. I was like, wow, these characters were just like saying things over and over again. This is a book, I got it as part of Amazon First Reads. So if you don't know, if you have Amazon Prime, every month you have access to Amazon First Reads, where you can pick a book that has not yet come out, that's supposed to come out that month, out of their list of books that they're offering that month, and you get it for free. And this was one from several months ago that I got, and it's dual perspective. It's about a therapist or like life coach who has a really complicated family history, and her youngest sister died from an overdose like years before, and she's working on her life coaching program, and she's estranged from the rest of her family because there have been accusations made against her dad that she believes that everybody else in her family sided with her dad. And then the second perspective is Chase London, who's this really famous young, early 20s type actress who like grew up being an actress. So she grew up in Hollywood. She's an addict and she's been to rehab like 4 times or something. She just keeps like messing up her life. A friend of the therapist and life coach asks for a favor. He's also a director and he wants Chase London in his next movie, but they won't insure her unless she gets clean. So he asks a favor from this therapist. Eventually the therapist agrees to subject Chase London to this like boot camp called Square One. That's her whole company that involves like sobriety and then like therapy and learning how to be an adult and live in the real world and all that stuff. And it was a pretty interesting premise with like lots of interesting characters, and I thought the ending was really sweet. It emphasized the idea that like therapists don't have their whole lives put together either, which is a good message. It's a book, so there were obviously some things that were idealistic about it. Some of the conversations went like easier than expected or whatever, but overall it was fun. There were some really fun scenes, like there was a series of scenes where they were at like the county fair. Those were all really fun. I guess I wasn't a fan of the fact that either one of the two main characters had a love interest, but especially Chase, because she was supposed to be focusing on like getting better, and she did focus on that, but like it was still there the whole time, and I was like, this isn't really necessary. And I worry that it like projects the idea that to be complete, like you need to be in a relationship or something, and I know that's not the like intention. I was thinking about that, but it was a really good read overall, really fun, and it's done now. Only the Pretty Lies got 3 stars. It had the potential to be more, but I did have a couple issues with it. At its very core, this book is about a girl who's lived in this small town her whole life. It's been passed through the generation. She feels very strongly connected to her mom and her grandma, so it's on the maternal side that it's passed down. She has this great house that she lives in that like her grandma got for them originally. Her grandma originally owned a cafe. Her mom doesn't own it now because her mom didn't want to own a cafe, but the main character does work at the cafe. She knows that this is where she wants to stay her whole life, and eventually she wants to take over this cafe and carry on the lineage, and everybody else in this small town can't wait to get out and graduate high school. It is her senior year, and all of a sudden her childhood best friend comes back into the picture. The two have not talked for a good amount of time because the last time she saw him kissing her best friend, and she did have romantic feelings for him. He didn't know that, and he also never knew why she stopped talking to him. She did not tell him what she saw, but she used to visit him every summer in Kansas City, and I was born in Kansas City. That's cool. So she used to go there every summer to hang out with him. Their moms were really close, but she hasn't talked to him in a long time, and suddenly he moves in to the place connected to her house because he really wants to go to this one school for creative writing, and the only way they could possibly afford for him to go if he does get in is to have in-state tuition, and he doesn't live in-state, so they move in-state for his senior year. I thought the main conflict was going to be about how those two characters felt about each other, and that did play a large role in the book. However, what played a bigger role in the book was the race of the main male character. He was Black. The author really tried to address some important things. I think she handled them okay. Essentially, there was a mural in the high school that the two went to that had like a slave ship in it, or at least that's what the characters interpreted it to be, but nobody had ever noticed before, nobody had a problem with it. And then like the first Black kid comes to the school and he like hates it and he wants to take it down, obviously. And so there's a whole fight over that. We also go into moments about like how Black people are treated when it's perceived that they've done things wrong, and that's always a good discussion. It did feel incredibly preachy to me. Like I've seen it done way better before. And it's also interesting that it was so preachy because I believe the author is white, and she was saying in her acknowledgements, you know, that she wanted to write this to better herself, which is great, very noble cause. But again, it was just like being hit over the head, and it does read younger. I would say it's definitely a YA book, and so like that's a good message to have in a YA book especially, but I just thought it was really heavy-handed, and I also thought that it in some ways took away from the rest of the story. Like they'd be having these good plot lines and then they'd veer really far out to try and circle back to this mural, or like everything would be going fine and suddenly he was accused of something and was handled poorly, and it just interrupted the flow a bit. She totally should have talked about those things, and it's good that she did. However, again, it was just a lot, and it did unfortunately change, I felt, while reading it. Also, the writing style just wasn't really my vibe, but it was a quick read, so that's good. And the main female character, I'm not sure I liked her, to be honest with you. She was pretty ignorant and naive, and although she grew a lot during the book, like it was such a 180, like it just, I don't know, it didn't make great sense from a character arc perspective from me. But overall, it was like a great message, pretty good book, and a good time, so 3 stars. I could have sworn I recorded a vlog clip for April Fool's, but I guess I didn't. I did read April Fool's. I gave it 3 stars. It was really, really quick, and in that way it was pretty enjoyable because it didn't like drag on. Like it was only okay, but it didn't drag on, which was good. There were some really interesting characters. I do have to say, I did not know that this was the last in a series, but it's like a rom-com mystery series, so you really don't have to have read any of the previous ones to read this one, as I clearly showed by not reading any of the previous ones and then reading this one. The elderly female, like secondary character, I think was my favorite character of all. The main character of this book is a librarian, also a journalist. She's got a lot going on. Plus, she's accidentally solving these mysteries on the side because ever since she moved into this very small town, dead bodies have been showing up. However, this is the only book in the series in which a dead body does not show up. Instead, it is more of a like trafficking situation she somehow also ends up in the middle of. I don't know, this girl is a mess. She's also having really stupid issues with her boyfriend. Like, I guess towards the beginning of the series, probably they're like not dating and then they start dating or whatever. So now that it's the end of the series, they're like, we're going to make them upset instead of them just like being together. And I'm like, or just leave that entire plot thread alone, because her boyfriend was really great and she was being really weird about him, like incredibly weird. And he thought that she liked one of the police officers. She clearly hated the police officer, but like the police officer kind of liked her, but it was like, it could have been enemies to lovers, but it wasn't. So there was a love triangle, but it was really terrible love triangle, you know, like made of sand. And so her boyfriend was freaking out, but she was like, you're crazy, this isn't anything. Instead of like validating his feelings and being like, I promise everything's okay, she just like shut down on him, which was very, very strange. Granted, she was dealing with a lot at the time, like this whole trafficking ring that she was trying to bust or whatever. But it was a quick read, and yup. As a wrap up, Anything But Extraordinary got 3 stars. Adulting got 4 stars. Only the Pretty Lies got 3 stars. Imperfect Chemistry got 4 stars, and April Fools got 3 stars. Definitely like a good reading vlog, especially considering the fact that illustrated covers can be a bit of a like situation for me. Turns out you can read the illustrated covers just fine. Just avoid romance, Martine. I mean, some of this was romance and it was really good. So I'm not sure I learned anything from this, except that I read 5 books with illustrated covers and I had a good time. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up and comment down below all your thoughts about illustrated covers. And subscribe for more reading, writing, and college lifestyle content. And until next time, bye humans, bye!